Part 2. Sam. Chapter 21. Partner. I have always been Marcus's partner ever since I, Samuel Arnold Robbins, was born on June 1st, 2006. I don't know why we became devoted brothers since day one. Maybe it's because when my mom was pregnant with me, Marcus always spent a few minutes every day with his head cuddled up and resting on her baby bump. However, then again, we both did that when she was pregnant with George, too, and we don't have as strong of a relationship with George as Marcus and I have with each other. When it comes to me and Marcus's relationship with George, we both have the issue with him, which is that our mom was a lot more neglectful after he showed up, and the same thing with our dad, because he takes care of our mom. We do love George, but we just aren't as close with him. However, ever since Marcus became Doctor Marcacius, we have become a lot more closer with him because of how our mom is lately and the fact that we don't know who the return is. It is best for us to stick together. I will say this, because I don't have the best relationship with my mom anymore. That is how I became closer with my dad. I hang out and cuddled up with my dad a lot, or at least we used to before Dr. Marcacius showed up. I can tell my parents dealing with Dr. Marcacius and not Marcus has really been stressing them out. My dad really wants to just cuddle with my mom over me because it is his coping mechanism for family stress. I do understand why married people use their spouse as a tool to cope with the stress but they also need to think of their kids too. I also understand why people love their spouses more than their kids, but again, they need to think of their kids too. I especially understand what I just said applies more so with people with autism, just like me and everyone else who lives in Robbinsog, which is my immediate family. I understand how Marcus feels. However, there is something that bothers me about that. I do feel like Marcus is overreacting, to the extent where I was the one who went to the Polk Charter School on Polk Street by the Pink Line station for my behavioral issues, but currently with how bad his behavioral issues have gotten since he became Dr. Marcacius, especially after that incident at the hospital where Mom lost her job. And now Mom's sisters, which are his aunts, don't want to do anything with him because of his behavior. I feel like he is the one who should go to the charter school for kids with behavioral issues and not me. The thing though is, Marcus, aka Dr. Marcacius, is my best friend and brother, and I'm stressed that if I tell him off, he'll be really upset at me, and I am real scared he is going to hurt me because, while he hasn't hurt anyone in a while, he has hurt people, and I am scared what he would do if I told him off. Now we are going to talk about myself. According to my parents, I wasn't even 3 hours old by the time Marcus held me, and according to my parents, he held me before my mom did, and all he ever do to me as an infant was just kiss and hold and cuddle me. It was that winter where we went to Orlando to visit my grandparents because they didn't want to come to Robbinsog to see us, and they only want us to come to them. When we went down, we flew from Midway Airport in Chicago to Orlando, and the whole experience for my parents was awful. I cried the whole time on those 2.5 hour flights down to Orlando and back up to Chicago. Because of that, the next year, our parents motorcycled us down to Orlando and back with us in attached seats that were well secured. My parents loved it because they liked the rush of the wind and the beauty of driving down to Orlando. Marcus, I could tell, liked it, but I liked it the most because of the reason that's how I developed my interest in roads. And the next year when we went down again, my parents let me look at their road atlas at the route we were going to take to Orlando, and boom, that's how I became a professional road navigator. However, Before we went to Orlando, the second time, we went to London to celebrate my first birthday and my parents' 10th wedding anniversary. And that trip, and that according to Marcus, was one of the best vacations of his entire life. I don't remember that trip, because I turned one while we went on that trip, but Marcus has always been into the Beatles when we went to Liverpool for the day, to see the Beatles Museum, and Marcus was in paradise according to my parents. It was also on that trip to London where I was baptized into orange. My parents discovered that my favorite color was orange when they realized I was refusing to eat baby foods that were not orange, and I was refusing to play with toys that were not orange. They chose to baptize me in London because my parents felt if I was baptized on vacation, it is a momentous occasion to be baptized, and a vacation is a moment where really more of a life that should be remembered for a long, long time. So they felt baptizing me in the bathtub of the hotel room we were staying at for 2 weeks in London. They were killing two birds with one stone. I have always been devoted to my family as I got older than Marcus, but not like George. I think of the quality of the color orange, and George doesn't really care. All he wants is his hands on the color green. Meanwhile, back to our trip to London. There is something about it regarding Marcus which I find to be so sad. Ever since George was born, which is when our mother's mobility issues began to appear, Marcus has become a lot more of a pessimist because he feels neglected by Mom, because she can't help us as like she used to. And according to my dad, the last time he brought up a trip to London to Marcus, he totally forgot about it when he used to bring it up to him all the time when he was younger. But unfortunately, he forgot about it because his mind was set on other things that upset him. So personally, I think Marcus has forgotten our trip to London by now, and our parents said nothing because I don't think they like bringing up good times to Marcus, because he focuses so much on the bad that I think if someone brings up good times to him, that he will be really upset because he wants things to be normal again, which is good, but he knows they are not going to be normal because George is around, and he thinks that he is the reason Mom has her mobility issues, and things were not normal and bad when our mom got her mobility issues. I will say this, my mom has changed in a bad direction because of her mobility issues, but I don't think they are as bad as Marcus makes them out to be. First of all, yes, some days are better than others, but I don't think she has gotten progressively worse. Second, she just has had difficulty holding, carrying, and keeping her balance. Nothing that in my eyes makes her dysfunctional. Third and finally, well, it has been made clear to us now that she has mobility issues and she has changed for the worse, we know how she is at this point. Yes, it has impacted our relationship with her, but I personally have accepted that at this point. When it comes to accepting our mother for how it is, Marcus is the exact opposite as me, because he became Doctor Marcacius because of that difference. George was born when the difference began, so he doesn't know how she was like before he was born. And our dad, I think, sees the difference too, but he refuses to accept it by cuddling and making love with Mom every night. I must say this, and I am not sure if Marcus or George feel the same way. I'm glad that Mom and Dad have the happiest marriage I have ever seen. My dad would never have been as successful in life if it weren't for my mom. My mom is 7 years older than my dad, but I think that's part of the reason they love each other so much. My dad has always had difficulty with his parents, and I think the fact my mom, when he was a teenager yet, and my mom was a young adult, is why he married her, so it's like his mom. That he never got. And I know that sounds creepy, but love always wins in our family. Back to my mom and her mobility issues, and how it impacted us. I and Marcus became a lot closer after George was born, mostly because we always suspected something with George causing our mom to get her mobility issues. Just to be clear, we never hated George. We just have never been that close to him. Again, we have become closer ever since Doctor Marcacius appeared, but we just were never that close, and the reason why we were close to him now is because we think in these times of hardship caused by the return, it's best for the three of us to stick together because our mother can never find out about it. I became a lot more closer with my dad after George was born because both I and Doctor Marcacius felt significantly less close to our mother after George was born because she was sad all the time because of her mobility issues. We think we don't know. I became closer with him because he loves our mother more than anything, and something that very few people know about, and Marcus does not know about, was that I talked about how I felt about our mom changes a lot. I am not sure if my mom listened to me or not. Somehow I have a feeling he did not, because he himself never confirmed anything about our mother to us. I have a feeling that part of the reason he never confirmed anything to us is because he didn't want to admit something was happening to her mother because he loves her so much. Looking back upon it, I can't say I regret cuddling with my dad because that's how he and I became so close, but looking back upon it, I regret venting about it to my mom. If I just said about refusing to admit to himself about our mom being sick, then it is true. Then I feel like I caused him pain he didn't need to have, and no one does. The thing is, George would be too young to understand, and I couldn't talk about with my mom about it, especially since the time I saw Marcus get his ass kicked. I couldn't talk about with Marcus because I know it will upset him on so many levels. The thing though is, I have a bad feeling that if I talked it over with Marcus, it would have stopped him from becoming Doctor Marcacius. Why do I say a bad feeling? Because I never wanted Marcus to go through with his transition. I told him several times not to go through with it, but he said he wasn't going to let anything stop him, and nothing did stop him. The main reason why he told me about it was because I was his best friend, and if there was something before he met Hannah that he only told one person, that one person was always, no matter what, me. He always discussed it with me before he ever told our parents. Our parents were never the first ones to find out about anything regarding Marcus. I always was the first one to find out no matter what, even when it was something specifically meant for our parents. I was never the same way as Marcus. If there was something specifically meant for our parents, I would go to them immediately. I even told Marcus a few times that he should stop coming to me first, but he said no, because he was scared that if he told our parents he was going to be neglected by them again. If he was neglected by them again, it would just lead to a shouting match between the two of them, and that would just put Marcus on bad terms with our parents for the rest of the day, and sometimes longer than that, depending on the circumstances of the situation. Despite me and Marcus being partners, we both have different ideologies when it comes to dealing with things. Some things like how to deal with our parents or ideologies are becoming more and more different. And while when it comes to how we release our anger, period, on ideologies, we become more and more similar. Releasing our anger has always been a touchy subject to me. I was the one sent to the Polk Charter School for my behavioral issues, because that, throughout my whole life, because issues were what stood out of my autism the most, and that was what the Polk Charter School specialized in when it comes to dealing with kids on the autism spectrum. Of all three of my parents' children, I was the one who had the worst terrible twos, and it was all because of my behavior. To compare the terrible twos among my parents' children, Marcus's were just full of temper tantrum, which involved hitting, crying, and kicking, while George, it didn't exist at all. I would throw things, and things I would not like. It was like I decided to throw a temper tantrum on my 3rd birthday, resulting in me throwing a tin can on my father's head, causing him to get stitches, while my parents needed to look for a charter school for me. When it comes to my behavioral issues now, all I can say is I punch objects now and I hurt my knuckles a lot. But my parents have said they would rather me be aggressive like that than on them. I think the reason for that is because they want me, to break my knuckles so that way I can stop altogether, but that day has not come yet. But depending on how much pain I am in, that day, when it comes, maybe I will stop. My parents have offered me to get a punching bag for my room, but I said no, because I don't like the feeling of a punching bag, because the feeling of a punching bag is too neutral for me, because I can only punch things that are super hard like a wall or super soft like a pillow. I personally will never be able to understand how my sensory issues function like that, especially when it comes to punching things, but that is the crazy thing about autism, because our sensory issues are what made us act weird and have crazy beliefs, but people not go along with it.